My best friend had my boyfriend's baby. 14 years later, a DNA test shattered my family with a secret none of us saw coming. This incident dates back to 14 years ago, when I was still in high school. We were a close-knit group of three: Becky, Rob, and me. When it all happened, Becky and I were 17 and Rob was 18. Back then, Rob had to repeat a year after his parents returned to the U.S. in Prague. So the three of us were in the same class. More than friends, we were family. Our parents were best friends. My dad and Becky's dad had settled here after college. Rob's dad moved to Prague for work, but returned when Rob was 7. Becky and I had known each other since we were babies, and Rob became our friend when we were 6, so we had known each other forever. The three of us had promised to be lifelong friends, just like our parents. Rob and I started dating when I was 15. It wasn't just a teenage fling. We dated for 2 years and were quite serious. At least I was serious, and he pretended to be. We planned to enroll in the same university and then get married. People used to call Becky the third wheel. In reality, Becky and I were so close that Rob would joke about feeling like the third wheel between us. But now that I think about it, maybe I was the spare wheel. I'll get to that eventually. When we were 17, Becky got pregnant. She was so terrified that she locked herself in the school bathroom. I was equally horrified when I saw those 2 pink lines. I asked her who the guy was, but she wouldn't say a word. All she did was cry, fearing her parents' reaction. She took the test twice in front of me. To calm her down, I suggested she see a doctor before telling her parents. I took her to the doctor, and they confirmed her pregnancy. She was so scared of her parents that she hid it for almost a month. That month was just as hard for me. I brought her supplements, made sure she ate well, gave her tissues and juices, and offered her a shoulder to cry on. She confided in me about her fears, anxiety, and uncertainty. I was her only support, yet she wouldn't reveal the guy's name. I supported her in every way. Finally, I convinced her to talk to her parents before it became obvious. She asked me to be there with her when she told them, and I agreed. It wasn't unusual for our parents to see us helping each other, so they thought it was just another one of those times. When she revealed she was pregnant, her parents called mine to share their distress. Even then, she didn't reveal the guy's name, not even to her parents. She cried so much that my parents asked her parents to give her time to trust them. 2 days later, my mom told me to stop visiting Becky so often and to focus on my studies instead of babysitting my friend. This wasn't the kind of restriction where they thought Becky was a bad influence on me. My mom was very protective of her. A week later, I found out why my mom was asking me to stay away, not to protect me, but to protect her. That afternoon, I randomly showed up at Becky's house and found Rob there with his parents. Both Becky and Rob were crying, and even my parents were there. As soon as my mom saw me, she rushed to me and asked me to go home. I asked her what's going on. She said, "It's none of your business." When Becky and Rob saw me, they froze, and I instantly understood what was happening. And I screamed, "Oh, the baby is Rob's. Both of you have been sneaking around behind my back." They both ran to me saying, "Can we explain?" I said, "There's nothing to explain. The truth is right in front of me. My boyfriend and my best friend are having an affair behind my back, and my best friend is carrying his child. My parents dragged me out because I was yelling too loudly. When I got home, I locked myself in my room and cried for days, curled up in my bed. It was beyond heartbreaking. I had blindly trusted her and supported her in every way during her tough times, while she was sneaking around with my boyfriend behind my back. The worst part was that everyone was so busy taking care of the expectant mom that they didn't even consider my pain. Of course, Becky and Rob tried to reach out to me, but I didn't let them. I blocked them both on all social media platforms. It was understandable that Becky's and Rob's parents wouldn't care about my pain, but even my own parents showed little empathy. My mom said, "Get over it. Be happy that your best friend is having a baby. You'll be a fun aunt to a cute little child." She was acting delusional. My best friend is having my boyfriend's child, and she wants me to be happy about it. She said, "Oh, come on, don't ruin this for everyone. We're all so happy to welcome this baby into our lives. Don't spoil it. It's no big deal that Rob slept with your friend. This kind of thing is common during adolescence. Don't take it too seriously. I'm sure you'll find another loving boyfriend soon," she said, winking. Someone taller and more handsome than Rob. My mental health worsened. I couldn't pinpoint when this might have happened or how I didn't see it coming. There was no one I could trust. My sister, who was 15 at the time, was dating Becky's brother, so she was definitely on their side. When I cried to her, she said, "How didn't you guess that Rob was the father? The three of you are always together. If one of you gets pregnant, it has to be Rob's. So she also told me, move on. Don't ruin our relationship with them. School was the worst. Rob and Becky had both dropped out. Rob couldn't handle the bullying, and Becky left school for obvious reasons. I had no friends besides these two losers, and everyone at school knew Rob and I were dating. Then Rob got Becky pregnant, and they both left school, leaving me to face the gossip alone. My family was more concerned about their friendship with Becky's and Rob's parents than about my feelings. Dad was a bit better. He used to ask me how I was sometimes, but Mom was the worst. She baked homemade cookies for Becky while I cried and spiraled into depression in my room. Basically, she dismissed and laughed at my feelings. As Becky's pregnancy progressed, my condition worsened. It was so hard to see Rob taking Becky on walks, to her medical checkups, and to appointments to ease her anxiety. My family kept asking me to ignore them and move on. I didn't know how I was supposed to move on. They were my neighbors. It wasn't just hard. It was impossible not to run into one of them at least once a day. On top of that, my family was constantly involved in conversations about their baby. Apparently, they were calling themselves the future grandparents. Yes, our families were that close. If she were having a baby with anyone else, I would have shared the same happiness as they did, but not anymore. My mental state hit rock bottom. It got so bad that on the day of my high school final exams, I packed a bag and ran away from home. I've been planning this since the news of the baby broke. I had been saving for it. I sold all my books, comics, gadgets, watches, and any small jewelry I owned. I told my family I was going on a trip with friends. They were so tired of my depression that they didn't ask any questions and said, sure, have fun. I left home, never to return. I moved to the next city, lived in a hostel, and worked as a waitress to make ends meet. It was stressful, with immense uncertainty about the future, but I felt much better than being at home. After a month, my parents started reaching out asking when I would return home. I had changed my number, so they emailed me. I blocked them there too. They used other email addresses to write to me, so I changed mine as well. That was it. I don't know what they did to try to find me. Living alone wasn't easy, but eventually I managed. I worked as a waitress for 2 years, then as a receptionist for another year, and finally landed a job in sales, which I held for 3 years. I met my husband while working in sales. He was a marketing guy. He bonded over our family issues. He lost his mother at a young age, and his father married a teenage girl his age, forcing him to call her mom. Other acts of manipulation and verbal abuse followed until he left home. We had only known each other for a year when he told me he wanted to fund my university education, which I could repay later. He wanted me to improve my life. I accepted his offer and went to college. I continued working part-time during college to cover my other expenses. I studied accounting and got a well-paying job right after graduation. On my first day of work, he proposed to me, and we got married a year later. Now we have a child. Life is good. A month ago, we went to Disneyland, where we arranged to meet my sister who was there with her family. She had married Becky's brother and had a child with him. I hugged her child, and the moment was so surreal. I hugged my sister, and we both cried. She felt bad because I had disappeared. She and her husband, Becky's brother, both apologized for not supporting me enough. I said, let's leave the past behind and enjoy the trip. We all had a good time as a family. We exchanged contact information, and she made me promise to stay in touch. Later, when I got home, she told my mom about the meeting. My mom sent me a message saying she wanted my number. I still wasn't sure if I wanted to reconnect with her. My husband advised me to make peace with my family and move forward. So, I gave my sister the green light to share my number. Within an hour, my mom called me. She was sobbing. She regretted her mistakes and said she was very sorry for everything I had to go through. She said she was eager to meet her grandson and insisted that I visit with my family. Well, I haven't said yes or no yet. I'm thinking about what to do. Edit. I missed an important point. My sister was showing me pictures of her children, and while scrolling through her gallery, I came across a family photo of hers. Becky and Rob were in it. My sister told me that Becky and Rob got married 4 years after I left home. They had 2 more kids, in addition to their first daughter. I just smiled and didn't say anything. She wanted to tell me more about them, but seeing that I wasn't interested, she backed off. Edit 2. To answer why my parents didn't look for me when I left, it's because I called them and told them why I was leaving. That way, they didn't involve the police or anything. And since I was already 18 when I ran away, there wasn't much they could do. Update 1. Hi everyone, sorry for not updating this sooner. Let me start from where I left off. After a lot of contemplation, I went to see my family. My parents hugged me and cried. Yes, they apologized for neglecting my feelings. It was a bittersweet moment for us. My sister was there with her husband and children. Her husband, Becky's brother, also apologized to me and asked me to keep in touch. It was so nice to see them all. We had all grown up together like a family. My brother, who was 10 years old when I left, is now married and has a 2-month-old baby. It felt good to hold and play with my nieces and nephews. We were there for a 2-day trip. The first day was very emotional and beautiful in its way. My parents met my husband and son, who was delighted to meet his grandparents. On the second day, I was casually chatting with my sister when my mom walked in and said, "See, I told you you'd find someone better than Rob. And look, you found such a wonderful husband. You worried unnecessarily about the whole situation." My sister gave her a look and told her to stop. But who could stop her? She continued. "Oh, it's okay. She's moved on from her past. Look how happy she is in her life." I said, "Sure I have." She sat next to me and said, "So why not make peace with the past, forgive everyone, and move on?" I said, "I've made peace with the past and forgiven everyone." She said she didn't mean them, but Robbie and Becky. She wanted me to forgive them and start talking to them again, so we could spend time together as a family like before. I asked, "Why do you want me to do that? You still spend time with them, don't you?" She said they're embarrassed that you don't talk to their kids, Becky and Rob. "But their kids are so kind to us." I said, "But your other 2 kids, my brother and sister, are kind to your friends. Be happy with that." "Why bother me?" She insisted I forgive Becky and Rob and rekindle our friendship. I said, "No way, and it's none of your business." She started preaching to me about the importance of forgiveness in Jesus' teachings. Then she said, "Becky wants to meet you and your husband. Can I invite her over for dinner?" I said, "If you do that, I'll leave the house now and never come back." At that point, my siblings also got upset with Mom. In her defense, Mom said Becky's dad had seen me through the window and might have told Becky. So Becky called Mom and asked her to reconcile us. I got so angry at her silly excuse that I stormed off to my room. My sister followed me and said, "Mom has this weird obsession with Becky's family. I mean, yes, they've been friends for decades. But the way Mom is so concerned about maintaining the friendship now seems very suspicious." I asked her what made her say that. She said that last year, she and her husband were going through a rough patch in their relationship. My sister casually mentioned to Mom that if her husband continued his manipulative behavior, she might consider a divorce. Mom lost her temper and said outright that there would be no divorce no matter what. And my sister had to adjust, even if he cheated, because we couldn't ruin her friendship. Sounds odd. My sister and I looked back at the past and realized Mom had always been like this. She always loved Becky and her brother more than us. Back then, we never complained about it because Becky was my best friend and her brother was my sister's boyfriend. Once the discussion was over, we went back home. I almost forgot about this conversation with my sister. Last week, my husband showed me a video of a middle-aged couple kissing in a bar. The couple was none other than my mom and Becky's dad. Yes, I was shocked. Mom's obsession with maintaining a good relationship with them now makes a lot more sense. They can spend time together whenever they want. My husband had gone to a neighboring town, not my hometown, for a work trip, and that's where he saw them. He recognized it was Mom but didn't realize the man was Becky's dad. He recorded it to show me because there was no way I'd believe him without the video. After watching it, I was speechless. I really needed to talk about it, so I called my sister and asked her to come over the next day. She sensed it was urgent and came quickly and showed her the video, and she was equally shocked. My sister hasn't told her husband yet because he would also freak out. Now we are in a dilemma about what to do. Should we tell Dad about this or confront Mom and ask her to change her behavior? But wouldn't that be betraying Dad again? Things are getting complicated. Update 2. My parents are getting divorced. Yes, for obvious reasons. My sister and I spent weeks thinking about what to do. At least I could discuss it with my husband and vent, but my sister's condition was worse. She couldn't even discuss it with her husband. Her anxiety and silence were ruining her relationship. We had to do something. So we did what any other pair of siblings in the world would do. We told our brother, thinking he might have a better idea of how to handle the situation. Upon seeing the video, he completely lost his temper. He went straight to Mom and confronted her in front of Dad. She denied it, and he showed her the video in her face. I don't know if it was wise or reckless of us to involve him, but at least it took the weight off our shoulders. Our brother told us he had been absolutely angry with Mom his whole life because she ignored him in favor of Becky and her brother. He said he hated my sister and me for our closeness with that family. But as he grew up, our closeness made sense. Mom's didn't. Dad and my brother almost stormed Becky's house to show the video to Becky's mom, who broke down upon seeing her husband kissing my mom. To simplify things, Mom was basically sleeping with Dad's best friend. Yes, by then, everyone knew the truth, including Rob and his parents. Dad and Becky's mom teamed up and confronted Mom and Becky's dad. We wanted to stay neutral, but we couldn't after learning they had been cheating since we were kids. Initially, they claimed it had started recently as a midlife crisis, but their stories were inconsistent. Dad threatened to throw her out of the house immediately. That's when they told the truth. They had been cheating for over 30 years. Yes, they had been doing it in front of everyone even before Rob's dad moved to Prague, and no one ever suspected it. Dad tried to stay strong for the family, but he became miserable. One day, he just showed up at my door, hugged me, and cried like a baby. He said he now understood the pain I must have felt when my boyfriend cheated on me with my best friend. Mom did the exact same thing to Dad, sleeping with his best friend. It's terrible. It's like being stabbed from both sides. Dad called the three of us, my sister, brother, and me, for a meeting. He said he was sorry, but he couldn't forgive Mom and live with her, pretending nothing had happened. Mom was telling him the same thing she told me, forgive and move on. Dad said he was proceeding with the divorce, and before that, he wanted to inform us. All three of us supported him. We stand by whatever decision he makes. Apparently, when Mom found out Dad was going to serve her divorce papers, she fainted. She begged him to give her one last chance for the family's sake. I wasn't present at the time, but my sister was, and she said something to Mom. It turned into a big family drama. Dad finally served the papers and moved out. A similar story happened with Becky's parents. Her mom has also filed for divorce and moved out of the house. So in my home, Mom is alone, and in their home, her dad is alone. They might move in together. Who knows? A blessing in disguise for them. Who knows? Maybe the two of them have been waiting to live together anyway. I'm out of it. I have my own family to worry about. These divorces have been tough on my sister because both sides of her family are affected. She and her husband are going through tough times. I hope their relationship doesn't suffer amidst all this and that they can overcome this difficult stage. Thanks for all the love. I'll update the thread if anything new arises. Update 3. Well, my story keeps being fueled with more wood, or at this point, with straight-up gasoline. My dad had doubts about whether we were his children or not, but he didn't want to tell us anything until recently to avoid adding more drama. But it was my brother who brought it up to my dad because he had suspicions. So Dad confessed he did too, and we all took a DNA test. I am my father's daughter, I guess because the affair started after having me, but my siblings aren't. And here's the problem. My brother is upset, but still considers Dad his father. But my sister has a serious issue on her hands. She married her half-brother. Not only that, but they have had a baby together. So you can imagine what's happening in her life right now. It's no longer about whether my mom wants us to be friends with that family. Things have spiraled out of control. On one hand, it's a medical issue because my nephew could have been born with a congenital defect. Thankfully, he wasn't. But my sister plans to have him undergo checkup soon. On the other hand, there's a legal aspect, as in this state, and I'm not sure about the country, it's illegal for half-siblings to marry due to shared blood and health concerns. So, my sister is in a predicament, even though she didn't know, and so is my mom because of all this. Dad is devastated by the situation, and I can't even begin to imagine how he feels. I feel bad too, though I'm certainly not the most affected this time. My siblings, as I mentioned, are also deeply hurt for different reasons. Everything is chaos, all because of my mom and her lover. Update 4. Well, I bring news though months have passed, but I wanted to have all the information rather than making small updates. And first, the most important thing, my nephew's health. They went to the doctor, and after explaining the situation, he conducted some tests, and everything seems fine with him. I don't know if any issues might manifest in the future, but for now, we're safe. As for the legal issues, my sister and her husband weren't charged because they found out later, but their marriage was annulled. This is a very difficult time for them because they truly loved each other and didn't expect any of this. There are no words to describe everything that has happened. It's simply surreal, and it's all my mom and her lover's fault, who didn't receive jail time because it's not like they were certain about all this, though they must have suspected it. However, they were fined $5,000 each. Still, my sister and her now ex-husband plan to sue them, which I believe is the most correct course of action at this point. Additionally, my siblings and I have decided to cut off all contact with her, which I consider quite lenient because that woman deserves much more. But I guess my sister will take care of that because she certainly had her life ruined, And the lawsuit is the most just thing for her. So that's everything that has happened recently. I hope nothing new arises, though I can't imagine what else could happen.